Well, okay, so and I might be completely misunderstanding the space and what Microsoft was planning with Game Pass, but the way I had the mental model for their path was this is going to be a loss leader for several years, and the Activision games and Call of Duty will be Game Pass exclusive if you're talking cloud gaming. And ultimately, the market, their bet was that the market is going to trend toward cloud gaming, and when it does, Microsoft will own that space several years down the road. And so they'll have to incur pain along the way, but they're Microsoft, so they can do that. And then one day we're going to wake up and Microsoft will be the dominant player because everybody will game via some service like Game Pass, except that Game Pass is going to be 100 times better than any other cloud gaming bundle option out there. Is that wrong? Were those assumptions
So
wrong in terms of what they
So
envisioned?
that is the UK's case, the UK Competition Markets Authority. And I think it's a more legitimate case than the FTC's case, which again is stupid. That's the technical term.
Yes.
So that is their case, is that like we're preempting Microsoft dominance in the cloud. And ultimately Microsoft basically like the games, the cloud rights are owned by Ubisoft and they can license them to Microsoft or Sony or sort of like, or wherever it might be, right? So
Right. I read the UK's case and I was like, that's a smart business decision by
so
Microsoft, a good long
no,
play for them if they're getting their ass kicked in the short term.
so this is a fuzzier question because at least it's a plausible case. The problem is it's a plausible case to, I think, to people who don't game, in that Call of Duty in the cloud is going to suck. Like there's a reason, like there's some games that will work well in the cloud. One of the things that's underappreciated is we talk about getting higher bandwidth connections. We talk about sort of all the progress of tech. Every tech is gated by the speed of light. Like there is actually just a fundamental issue that comes from whether, proximity matters, right? Like you get into all these questions of data centers and connections, all this sort of stuff. Like networking is a huge sort of bit, right? And so my contention would be, okay, the title that everyone cares about is Call of Duty. I have a hard time envisioning that in 10 years or whatever time frame you want to use, the majority of Call of Duty players, to the extent it's still a big title, are going to be playing through a little stick on their TV or on their smart TV in the cloud. It's going to suck, right?
So the tech is not ready.
The tech will never be ready.
The other hurdle for Game Pass.
It will never be ready. No, for a specific genre of games. Now, there's other types of games, like say, like because I'm a sicko, like I like Factorial or something like that. Like it's sort of like you're building those. It's don't. If anyone thinks it sounds interesting, don't play it. It'll ruin your life. So I played it in quarantine and then I had to set it aside. Say I'm not touching this again because it's very dangerous. Where latency is not critical, right? Like good enough latency is fine. And you can have a good experience. There's puzzle games. There's lots of games where arguably, a lot of sort of RPG type games could probably work in the cloud if they don't have like a real time battle system that's super sensitive latency. A first person shooter like Call of Duty, gonna be on hardware basically for probably forever. And just because like that sort of matters. Now, so that's point number one. Point number two is we have multiple examples of failed cloud gaming services. Amazon Luna, failure. Google, what was the Google one called? The name's escaping me, failure. Right? We have
Google Graveyard.
Yeah, it's not called Google Graveyard. It could be called Google Graveyard. You search up Google Cloud Gaming Service and see what it is. You have the Google Stadia. That's what it was. You have the NVIDIA service, which kind of works. It's not like NVIDIA is crowing about in their earnings or it's driving sort of results. Basically, we have a sector where all of the available evidence to date is that it doesn't work. Why are we preemptively regulating that sector? Like, what's a better outcome? No. Hear me out. What's a better outcome? Do we like the problem with preemptive regulation is that it assumes it's kind of like my analysis of Microsoft. I assumed if Game Pass works, XYZ. I didn't properly consider what if Game Pass does not actually drive an increased share for Xbox. Then what? In this case, what happens if the Microsoft Cloud Gaming Service failed? Like in the long run, what you're ending up with is less competition for gaming as a sector, in part because you hamstrung the companies trying to make it happen. There's a real anti-innovation issue with this And it seems, and this is always a question when it comes to sort of antitrust in general, but in a sector where every previous attempt, including by very well-funded companies, has failed, is this really the right place where we need to crack down and make sure that this company doesn't dominate? How about a company succeed first? Then we can worry about dominance.